Hello and welcome to what could well be another car crash video, because once again I have no notes, no script. This is something I saw on Twitter just as I left the house around 10 minutes ago, so this is all being done on the fly. But for the last few videos I've made, there's been a bit of a running theme, and that's because we're in March, which is Women's History Month, and tomorrow, the 8th, is International Women's Day. I've been trying to think of some of the things which women face which men don't. And I can't cover all of them because I'd be dead before I got to the end of that list. But as a modern-ish man, it's important to know what's going on for the other half of the human race. After all, I live with a woman. A small Irish woman who's constantly making noise. So if we look at woke ideology, we see that women are being erased from the English language. But not only that, something that affects women that doesn't affect men is that as a man, no one is trying to replace me. On the NHS website, almost every reference to female diseases or discomforts has now been changed to be gender neutral. None of that has happened on anything dealing with men's illnesses. And when I said about being replaced, well, there aren't any trans men trying to take over from biological men. I was going to say cis men, but I fucking hate that term. And although the vast majority of trans people, and I say this every fucking time, are just trying to live their lives, there is this hardcore who fuck it up for everyone else. And you may be thinking, Danny, what are you on about, you stupid bald bastard? How on earth are trans women trying to replace actual women? Well, I've got proof.
Today I want to tell y'all how I could be the world's first pregnant transgender woman. Now, am I actually going to be the first one? Who knows? But you're probably wondering, how can a transgender woman be pregnant if she doesn't have a uterus? Well, that's why you do a uterine transplant. So long story short, a donor uterus would be planted into me, it would be fertilized, a baby would be born, and then the uterus would be taken out so my body doesn't reject it. And this procedure has already been done on some cis women, meaning women who were born women and identify as women, and 16 of them have been successful and babies were born from donor uterus. Now, of course, the baby technically would not be my biological child unless I chose to fertilize the egg with my frozen man juice. And this should all be possible within like the next 10 to 20 years. So when I'm like 28 years old, I could get pregnant. I could be pregnant. Now, of course, it's never been done on a trans woman yet, but it just goes to show how crazy science is and anything is possible.
To be honest, I don't think that trans woman comes across as malicious or evil or anything like that. But because she is a biological man, I'll be using the pronouns he, him, just for the sake of fucking clarity. But what I do find bizarre is the way that he speaks about getting pregnant. First of all, that he could get pregnant with his own sperm. Imagine meeting a pregnant woman and asking, who's the father? You are. I can't get my head around that, and I'm from fucking Norfolk. And if you don't get the reference, if you're outside of the UK, the county of Norfolk is known as being somewhat inbred. I mean, part of the reason I moved to Staffordshire so I could fuck people I wasn't related to. In fact, if you go to rural Norfolk, you could meet someone who'll say, oh, come back to my house. You can meet my dad, my brother and my cousin. And you'll go in and there'll be one guy sat there. Also, given that he's frozen his sperm, I'm guessing he's had bottom surgery. And I will question the sanity of any man who opts to have his meat and two veg lopped off. There's the old joke that as men we're born with a brain and a penis but not enough blood to run both at the same time. And as a younger man, God knows, my cock has taken me to places I wouldn't go with a gun. But I've never felt so insane that I need to have the family jewels hacked off. He's correct about uterus transplants. They're actually around 80% successful. But they're only done between women, which makes fucking sense given it's only women that have uteruses. Is that right? Uteruses? Uteri? I don't fucking care. So why is there research to see if we can get men pregnant when all women, aside from disability, injury or birth defect, can conceive? Are we that keen to prove the existence of the Almighty? Do we need to bring down the wrath of God? Because let's be blunt, since 2020, we've had a plague, a war, we're now running out of food, so there's famine, we just need death to turn up to trigger fucking Armageddon. But the part I find most disturbing is where he's effectively saying he'll have a uterus put in, get pregnant, have the baby, and then have the uterus removed in case his body rejects it. Now, for a woman to donate her uterus, that is incredibly generous, and it's most likely that she's had ovarian cancer and hysterectomy, so a traumatic time for that woman. So for this man to say he wants to take a body part from another human, use it for 9 months and then fuck it off, does seem a bit insensitive. Imagine if in the future he met the donor, the woman whose womb he'd used. For him to say to her, "You gave me the ability to create life. I did it once, and I ripped it out and fucked it off in the incinerator." Like I said, it's only a tiny minority, but these militant trans women and their toxic fucking allies, they don't want the rights of women. They want to take women's rights away and have them for themselves. They want access to female-only spaces where they will be a physical danger. And now they want to take over the role of being a mother. When does it fucking stop? And that's before we get to the trans women who insist that they make better partners than actual biological women. They're better to date. Who insist that any straight man who won't date them is transphobic. Sorry, Squire, that's not what's going on here. If you have, or used to have, a cock and bollocks, I don't want to fuck you. I'll end with this. On the off chance that there are any trans people watching this video, I mean you no harm. I try not to come across as bigoted, but I do try and come across as rational. So please, for the love of God, leave motherhood to actual biological women. Because if you don't know what gender you are, how the fuck are you going to raise a child? That's a very depressing end to this video, but as ever, thanks for watching.